Today's video is all about the 8 best places for millennials to live in Vancouver. Let's get started right now. My name is Sebastian Albrecht with the Living in Vancouver, BC team. Welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, this channel is all about living in and moving to Vancouver. I put out videos just like this one every single week. And this week we're concentrating on millennials in Vancouver real estate. And I was inspired to put this video together because I recently came across an article that was talking about Vancouver's place globally and its attractiveness for millennials. It was ranked as number 4 in the entire globe, obviously number 1 in Canada, and for very good reason. The study sort of used 13 different categories ranking cities around the globe, and Vancouver came out in number 4, just behind cities like San Francisco and Portland. Where it ranked highest was in its attractiveness, its friendliness towards the LGBTQ community. Where it did not do so well was on its nightlife ranking, which I could attest to. But one thing that I was actually quite surprised by was that it didn't rank all that highly for its Instagrammability, which I'm shocked at because frankly, Vancouver is one of the more beautiful cities that you're gonna come across. But anyways, that being said, Vancouver is an attractive place for younger people to be moving to. And there's many parts of Vancouver that are highly desirable. And we're seeing a lot of people move to those areas. And I'm working with more and more younger people, whether it's past clients, their children, coming to purchase property. But the millennial generation, the Gen Z generation, you guys are the biggest cohort, the biggest demographic in Canada, and you are very serious about buying real estate. More than 60% of millennials want to purchase real estate, and more than 50% of those people are going to do it not in the places that they live. So they're choosing to move elsewhere. And one of the places that millennials are frequently choosing to move to is Vancouver. Before we get into those 8 areas of Metro Vancouver that millennials are moving to, I think it's important to touch on the fact that it's unlikely millennials are going to be purchasing single-family residential. You're unlikely to be buying a house in Vancouver because of the expense, because of how expensive it is. So more likely people that are young and younger generations, even with children, they're moving into attached homes. So whether that might be a duplex or a townhouse, but even more likely is a condo. So if you're single, you're more likely to be starting off with a 1-bedroom condo. And if you're a family, you're more likely to be looking at a townhouse. But it's pretty rare, I would say, for people in the millennial generation to be targeting a house as a purchase unless you've already owned real estate for some time and you have a really solid down payment. But it is just something to be aware of. If you are coming to Vancouver as a younger person, it is not that common that you're purchasing a house as a first purchase. All right, so let's get into those areas that are ideal for millennials. So I'm gonna start with the areas closest to the downtown core, and I'm gonna move out from there. These are in no particular order, but number 1 would be Yaletown. And Yaletown is on the downtown peninsula in the city of Vancouver. It is a highly desirable area for young people. And you're gonna find that real estate prices, typical condo in Yaletown is $869,700. A typical townhouse is $1,652,000. There are no houses in Yaletown. There are no real houses in the downtown core. Commuting downtown is basically right there. It's right beside you, but it is a 5-minute drive and it'll take you with transit about 5 minutes. So not a lot of difference. One of the nice things I think in Yaletown for a lot of people is that you don't really need a car. You don't even need to jump on transit. You could walk to work if you're working in an office downtown, and you can certainly ride your bike. So lots of people love that convenience. You don't really need a car. It is definitely one of the areas in the greater Vancouver region that cars are not necessary. The things that young people really love about Yaletown, one would be its incredibly central location. It is so close to downtown, and you have access to some of the best nightlife, fine dining, the entertainment, and perhaps the proximity to work if you are working downtown. Right at your doorstep is also the ocean and the beaches. You're sort of in the middle of everything, and that sort of vibrancy, that is something, if that's important to you, you're gonna really value that location being in Yaletown. And of course, You know, there's Stanley Park right at your doorstep, and getting up into the mountains or away for a weekend is really easy. Going out to the airport, everything is close by and within easy reach. And that's all the package of living in Yaletown that really millennials really love about being there. The other area in the city of Vancouver that millennials really love would be Mount Pleasant. And so in terms of prices, it's a little less expensive, or quite a bit less expensive than being right downtown. Typical condo is $746,900. Typical townhouse in March of 2024 is $1,176,200. And then a typical house, yes, there are houses in Mount Pleasant, would be $1,973,000. In terms of commutes, it could be as quick as a 5-minute drive, but it might also be more like 15 minutes in heavy traffic. And then it's roughly a 20-minute transit commute. So really easy commute. Of course, you could also easily walk or ride your bike or take an Uber or a car share. Lots of alternatives. If you're in the city, you don't have to rely on a car. And that is one of the big things, one of the big advantages of being in the city. And what do people love about being in Mount Pleasant? Well, it is that proximity again to being downtown, and yet not actually being downtown. So you're just on the edge of the downtown core, and at your doorstep again are some of the best dining and entertainment options. There's some great breweries, the Mount Pleasant area, and then, you know, the community parks and the community centers and the schools. It's not quite as densely populated as downtown, but it really is on the edge of downtown. So you have that at your doorstep, but you have all the other advantages of being in a community that is slightly less dense. Really some of the, you know, I would say it's one of the cooler neighborhoods. It is one of the most aspirational neighborhoods for young people. And there is a greater diversity of housing options than there are in the downtown core. So in an area like Yaletown, most of the homes are quite new and the prices are higher because of that. Well, in Mount Pleasant, it is an older community. It is in fact the oldest suburb of the city of Vancouver. So there are housing options that are much older, and you can find condos that are cheaper because of that. So they might have shared laundry, they might have bigger spaces, you might have a bigger patio, and those options you don't really have if you're living downtown. That is something that draws people to Mount Pleasant, where prices are a little lower, the housing options are a little broader, but it offers a lot of the conveniences of being so close to downtown. All right, now we're heading outside of Vancouver, and to be frank, many millennials these days, many young people don't actually see the value in being in the city. And more often they're driven to look outside the city. And partially that's because of budgetary concerns as the price of real estate increases. Also, I think, you know, it's the result of COVID. So many of us have been sort of separated from our work. We no longer have to go into the office every day, or perhaps not at all. And so you might find yourself being able to pick and choose where you live without having to be so close to the center of the city where your job might be. And so more often I'm finding young people are willing to look at the suburbs, something that 20, 30 years ago people really weren't willing to do. But people that are looking at the suburbs more often than not are still looking for what I would say are more urban environments, more densely populated, where they get a lot of the conveniences of being in sort of a city atmosphere rather than just being in a suburb where everything is really car dependent. And so one of the most popular suburbs of Vancouver that young people are sort of focusing their search on is Lower Lonsdale in North Vancouver. And this is really just right across the water from the downtown core. And it's a very quick commute into the city if that's what you're looking for. So in North Vancouver, you find prices are cheaper than downtown Vancouver, but not as cheap as a lot of other Vancouver communities. So a typical condo in Lower Lonsdale is $834,600. Typical townhouse, $1,423,500, and a house, yes, there are houses in Lower Lonsdale, is $2,416,100. In terms of commuting, you're gonna find that the commute driving from Lower Lonsdale into downtown Vancouver is fairly lengthy. It's longer than transit. It takes you 20 minutes on a good day and 40 minutes on a bad day. And then transit commute takes you about 35 minutes. And honestly, I love commuting by transit between downtown Vancouver and Lower Lonsdale because you get to take that sea bus. And it's essentially like, taking your own motor yacht from one side of the water to the other every single day. And it really is a pretty spectacular commute, in either direction. When you're heading into the city, you're gonna see the beautiful Vancouver city skyline. And when you're heading back to North Vancouver, the mountains as a backdrop are really, really impressive and incredibly beautiful. So why do people love North Vancouver? Well, more often than not, it is that proximity to Vancouver that people value, and being able to just jump on the sea bus and get over into downtown Vancouver, but not actually be downtown. So having that proximity, but a bit of separation. And there's a lot going on in Lower Lonsdale. There's lots of great restaurants, there's lots of great bars, there's a little bit of an entertainment district and stuff going on, but it is quite a bit sleepier than what you're gonna find in downtown Vancouver. And so people value that want to be in Lower Lonsdale. Also the proximity to the outdoors, and most often what I find, the people that are really geared towards an outdoors lifestyle really love being in North Vancouver because you're just that much closer. You are essentially on the base of the North Shore Mountains when you're living in Lower Lonsdale. So you have 3 ski hills right above you in the winter months, and in the summer months, then you have access for things like, rock climbing or downhill mountain biking or just great hiking. And there's tons of river access and ravines and all sorts of sort of outdoor pursuits that you can follow when you're in North Vancouver. And if you love that, you are gonna love North Vancouver. All right, now we're jumping a little further east and we're heading over to Port Moody, and specifically Port Moody Center. There you're gonna find the best prices for condos that we've seen yet. $745,100 for a condo, $1,098,400 for a townhouse, and $1,796,100 for a house. It is a 30-minute drive on a good day into downtown Vancouver, but on a bad day, it could take you as much as an hour. And in terms of transit, it takes 45 minutes. The nice thing about Port Moody is that it is now on the SkyTrain, and so getting from so many different parts of Metro Vancouver has suddenly become a lot easier from Port Moody, and specifically getting downtown is just 45 minutes by SkyTrain, which is fantastic. You can kind of just jump on, pull out a book, or do a little work before you arrive at work and not have to worry about the commute, not have to worry about driving, which I think is a really nice experience. And what do people love about Port Moody? What do young people specifically? Well, Port Moody is one of the suburbs, one of the few suburbs that is nicely oriented to the ocean. And so there's just at the end of the inlet there, and there's some really nice parks and beaches that you're gonna find in Port Moody. And it has access to excellent restaurants, a little bit of an entertainment area, specifically breweries. And so a lot of people from other parts of Metro Vancouver come to Port Moody because of those breweries. And then also just, there's walking trails, there's dog parks. It's a very dog friendly area. And again, similar to North Vancouver, you're gonna find that people that value being close to the outdoors definitely value being in Port Moody. And it is, again, just on the base of the mountains. And so it has this good mix of ocean access and mountain access that people really love about Port Moody. And next we're gonna jump over to Burnaby, and Burnaby is Vancouver's immediate neighbor to the east. It's a fantastic destination for millennials. Lots of young people are moving to Burnaby these days. And in terms of prices, you are gonna find good value in Burnaby, where a typical condo is $783,800. Typical townhouse is $957,300. And a typical house is $2,162,100. In terms of commuting from Brentwood, it's, whether you're in Brentwood or Metrotown, it's gonna be about the same, but it's a 15-minute drive on a good day, a 40-minute drive when traffic is rough. And by transit, it's a quick 30-minute commute. Basically just jumping on a SkyTrain. Burnaby is really well served by SkyTrain service. And what do people love about Burnaby? Well, people love the shopping, the food, the entertainment, the easy transit. Its proximity to Vancouver is a big draw as well because you are so close. And so you get the advantages of being in a suburb, an area that is typically less densely populated, and an area that is also known as having a lot of parks, a lot of green space. And that is something that a lot of people really love about Burnaby, but being so close to the much more densely populated city of Vancouver. And again, it's not quite as outdoorsy as you're gonna find areas like North Vancouver, Port Moody, or Coquitlam, because you're not quite as much right on the mountains, but you have incredibly quick access to those spaces. And the way that Burnaby is developing, and I think the thing that draws a lot of younger people is that we are starting to see much more urban development happening in Burnaby around SkyTrain stations and the shopping malls. So whether it's Metrotown, whether it's the Edmonds or Lougheed or Brentwood, those are the town centers that are being developed in Burnaby. And it's really been transforming considerably. So there's a lot of massive new developments happening, a lot of really nice new buildings being built, whether they're condos or townhouses. And then there's a lot of older product as well. So a broad array of options, housing options for people looking to purchase in Burnaby. And heading a little further east, we're going over to Coquitlam, and specifically North Coquitlam. So that's the area around Coquitlam Center. And there we find condos very well priced at $743,700 for your typical condo. I don't have any numbers for townhouses or houses because there's so few of them, but there's a lot of condos being built in that area. And it is an easy commute into the city. So 35 minutes on a good day, it's gonna take you about an hour on a bad day. And by transit, it's a 55-minute commute. It's a very easy commute, just jumping on the SkyTrain, sort of set it and forget it, similar to the way that we talked about Port Moody. It's just a little bit further down the same SkyTrain line from Port Moody. Again, a lot of people that are moving to Coquitlam and North Coquitlam in particular really love that access to the outdoors. And that area, you have fantastic parks, you have Lafarge Lake, and then you have the mountains up above. So easy access into the mountains. You also have that really simple access into the city. And there's so much development going on around Coquitlam Center in terms of shopping, in terms of food and entertainment. There's a lot more going on, but it is a little more suburban in feel. I mean, there is that town center, but much more in terms of chain restaurants, chain shops than you're gonna find in areas like the city of Vancouver. Definitely young people are moving into Coquitlam and really enjoying that lifestyle. And primarily, I would say, driven by affordability, because it is a step down in expenses when you're moving to an area like Coquitlam. And so if you're looking for a little bit cheaper place to live, you love the outdoors, and you want access to the rest of Metro Vancouver, you really value that transit sort of connection, and SkyTrain in particular, well, Coquitlam is an area that is worth considering. And one of the areas that I found most popular with millennials is New Westminster. And New Westminster, in terms of its proximity to Vancouver, one of the best values. For condos, you're gonna see your typical condo being $665,400. Townhouses, $971,900, and houses 1.6 million. So you can see this is the best value we've come across of all the areas that millennials tend to be targeting these days. In terms of a commute, it's a 30-minute drive into the city on a good day, 1 hour on a bad day, and transit will take you about 30 minutes. So one of the things that people love most is that transit commute. It's a little tough. It's a bit of a bottleneck in New West for driving in and out of, but it's been really well serviced with the SkyTrain network in particular. There's 5 SkyTrain stations in New Westminster. It's an incredibly small city, dense and old. It has a real urban center, which I think sort of in recent years has been a bit of a draw. If you want to be in an urban environment, but whether you don't want to be in downtown Vancouver or you can't quite afford to be in downtown Vancouver, a lot of people get drawn to New Westminster because of that historical downtown and that urban feeling that the city has. It has that excellent transit access, but then it is also relatively inexpensive, and it still has a lot of the the great things that people love about being in a more densely populated area. So access to parks, access to food and dining and the entertainment, all those things, but also that quick connection to all the other suburbs as well, all the suburbs served by the SkyTrain, I should say, and then also being able to get into downtown quite quickly. All those things make New Westminster highly desirable for young people these days. And finally, we're heading out to South Surrey. And in South Surrey, you're gonna find the best value of everywhere that we've looked at. So a typical condo in South Surrey is $635,500. Typical townhouse is $985,600, and a typical house is $1,939,400. A commute from South Surrey into Vancouver is going to take you 40 minutes on a good day and an hour and 15 minutes on a bad day, and a transit commute is an hour and 30 minutes. So the reason that we see condos in particular being so much cheaper in South Surrey is because of that distance. It is the furthest out of anywhere that you're gonna be looking here, and not everybody wants to deal with that commute. And it's not well connected with SkyTrain. And that's why the transit commute is so much longer. So if you need to get into downtown Vancouver, it's probably not the ideal location. But if you want good value, there's great shopping in that area. You have Morgan Crossing as an example, and there's Semiahmoo out there as well. There's plenty of restaurants, there's plenty of things to do, but really the draw is for people to be able to, if you're motivated to purchase a home, your dollar stretches a lot further. So you're gonna find, instead of being able to just afford maybe a studio downtown or a 1-bedroom in Port Moody, in South Surrey, you might be able to afford a 2-bedroom and possibly even a townhouse. And then, the decision becomes for young people who are having families, you may be motivated to take on a longer commute if you're able to buy a 3-bedroom townhouse as an example. And there's a lot of new townhouse developments that are going on in South Surrey, White Rock area that are pulling a lot of that younger generation that are starting families out to those areas. But one of the big things that people really love about South Surrey, aside from the prices and sort of the new developments that are going on, would be the orientation to the water. And there's some really beautiful beaches in that South Surrey area, whether it's Crescent Beach or White Rock Beach. These are two areas that, you would be right next to, and especially, again, if you have a family. I mean, these are beach communities, and it's probably no greater place, no more beautiful place in all of Metro Vancouver in the summer months than those beaches. And these are some of the areas, that South Surrey area is one of the areas in Metro Vancouver where you see the least amount of rain and the warmest temperatures. And again, those are draws for people that are looking around Metro Vancouver. And as long as you can handle the commute, or perhaps you don't need to commute and you're able to work from home, well then an area like South Surrey becomes a lot more appealing. There really are so many great places in Metro Vancouver for millennials to live. I touched on 8 of my favorites, but honestly, there are many more, probably dozens of other options that would really be ideal for the right person. So if you are a millennial and you're thinking of moving to Vancouver, definitely reach out. I've helped hundreds of people just like you settle in Vancouver, and I can help you as well. My contact information is right there on the screen. If you're not quite ready to do that, definitely hit that like button if you enjoyed this video, and smash the subscribe button if you want to see more videos just like this one. And be sure to check out my videos every single week on this channel. There are plenty more to come, and plenty that I've already done. I'd love to see you on next week's video. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to check out this video that I think you're really going to get a kick out of. Thanks again for watching.